So beautiful, here in you I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. My secret place, I'm wide awake, drawing close, stirred by grace, and all my heart is yours.
Got the gremlins out?
Don't fear,
What was the culprit?
Oh.
The cable.
I breathe you in.
I tried that cable again, and it let me down again, so I'm gonna throw it away for sure. The jack on the Reaper is going weird. And the jack on my car is going weird. So it's just
All the.
all the like the sitting around.
Dust.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry. You know you all my life. Your love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire.
Yeah, we ran there and back. Serious stuff.
To know you all my life.
Still had 2 minutes to spare. Killed it.
Drawing close, stirred by grace, and all my heart is yours. And all fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Ooh, your love. So deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry. To know you all my life. Your love so.
Hey everyone, my name is Steven. I'm an author, I'm a storyteller here in Charlotte, and I'm super excited to be heading up the second round of the Butterfly Net Book Club through Watershed. How to Catch God in a Butterfly Net is the title of the book, and it's a free ebook available on my website, copelandwrites.com, and it's a collection of theological essays and absurdities detailing the spiritual shifts of a questioning Christian. I love doing this book club because I really wrote the book for the purpose of discussion. It often shifts back and forth between critiques of evangelical Christian theology and then also progressive Christian ideology. And it kind of shows how certain groups have idolized certainty, and in doing so have believed to have caught God in a butterfly net. That's kind of the whole metaphor, the premise. My hope, really my ultimate hope for our time together is that we use the mind, in this case theology, to connect back to the heart. So I'm excited for this. Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning, everyone. That's just one of the many opportunities that we're going to be hosting and providing for our community this January and this February to connect around several different books. Stephen's been a part of our community now for, I think, 5 or 6 years. He hosted, when the pandemic first started, he hosted a book club, And now he's going to do a second pass of it. It was a really good experience for so many people, especially if you're kind of new to Watershed and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I hold the space in some of these conversations? Coming out of Preface, just another great choice for something for you to engage in. My name is Matt. I'm one of the co-pastors here. It is the third week of this series. Go ahead and start this series, Love in a Time of Corona. Go ahead and start sharing this, if you wouldn't mind, with your friends and your family. We're really excited about the conversation we're going to host this morning, continuing to push into dialogue around relationships, sexuality, gender, the impact of that in our community, the impact of those discussions in our world. And we're really excited that you're here. I'm being joined with Austin and Ashley and Courtney and Ted, and what's your name again? Thomas. What is this thing again? What is this called?
Cello.
Hi, how are you? No, such a dad joke. A cello, yeah. Oh, wow, that is just so cool. So we're going to hear you, I want to say tickling the strings. Is that a bad?
We can say pluck, but I like tickle.
Tickle, pluck.
Please don't tickle me. So.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get brutalized in our next staff meeting over this interaction. Anyway, we're glad you guys are here. It's going to be a great morning, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Let my eyes see nothing. Let my eyes see
What's up, everybody? It's good to see you this morning. I'm imagining seeing you in the virtual space. It's really good to be with you. We are going to do this song called Lay It Down, Lay It All Down. And if you've been around for any amount of time, this is an older song. But I imagine that as we discuss what it means to love in the time of Corona, to explore love, to explore relationship, and to pair that with the stress and the pressures of what's going on in the country and around the world, and this desire not to be divisive or feel divisive. And I'm left with this question of what if divisiveness meant unity, was a coming together? What if it was a way that we stirred up things to love? And sometimes that can feel really disruptive. And so this song says, lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. So maybe in the comment section as we're going over this song, what are you holding on to? Maybe you can post what you're holding on to that you need laid down or love through or assistance through, or however we can gather around you in this time of Corona. So hope you enjoy and hope it touches you in a space where you need to be felt this morning. Bring away your grief and pain. Every cause you have for shame, lay it all down, lay it all down. When your cares have buried you, and there's nothing left to do, lay it all down, lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus.
Carried on, but your heart was tired. Feared the worst and felt the fire. Lay it all down. Lay it all down. Filled with all those anxious thoughts, and all your doubts became your guide. Lay it all down. Lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the the feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus.
Hey, what's up, Watershed? This is Courtney Hall Lee. Happy New Year. I got to meet some of you during the Advent series, and I'm happy to be back again to have a book club with you all about my book, Black Madonna, A Womanish Look at Mary of Nazareth. We'll talk about the Virgin Mary and her role in the Jesus story and our society, and so I just want you to bring your questions and your preconceptions and your thoughts about Mary and everything else, and I'm sure that we will have a ton to talk about. I'm looking forward to it. See you then.
Are we alone? I am excited and I want to share something with you. So, if you haven't already heard, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. from now until February 9th, one of your Watershed adults is going to be joining for a good night greenhouse story time. And the reason that I am so excited is that this Tuesday, Miss Becca is doing the story and she said I could join. Yay! So please come and watch either here on Facebook Live or on Instagram on Tuesday at 7. Good night, Greenhouse. Yeah. Bye.
So I want to come to that. I'm so excited. That looks incredible. Scott Hofer just informed me he is willing to lead the Watershed puppet ministry moving forward. All you got to do is sign up in the comments now. Who's in? Like he did this in youth group, for like 20 years, because I think he was in youth group for like 20 years back in his church. So yeah, go ahead and start just blowing up the comment section. And Scott, you're welcome. I know you asked me to do that, so we're just here for you. No, in all joking aside, man, if you're a family with children, or you have friends who have children, man, what a great opportunity this Tuesday night. Good Night Greenhouse. It's just going to be great. Hope you can join us. Also, and this was the announcement before Good Night Greenhouse. Courtney Hall Lee Hall Lee is going to be hosting this book club. We've got a lot of book clubs coming, so I want you to know that if you engage, there it is, Courtney Hall Lee. I had it right. If you are interested in diving into some really transformative conversations that really host the three sort of pathways that we often mention here at Watershed: reclamation, liberation, and transformation. The book clubs that we're rolling out over the next 6 weeks are really going to, at various levels, focus on those three ideas. Her book is certainly one of them. There's still a few spots available, so you can go ahead and sign up for hers. And then in the comment section, there should be opportunities for you to express interest in some of the others coming down the pike. Again, we're going to be releasing these sort of in a staggered fashion all the way through the end of February. Also, if you have a student here at Watershed, I want to remind you that tonight at 7 p.m. is another game night, and so you can go on the webpage, our Watershed webpage, and engage information about how to log on there. And then also David at watershed.charlotte.com, our youth pastor here at Watershed, can help you navigate that as well. Also, it's been such an interesting year. We used to pack out an experience that we called Preface here, which is an on-ramping experience. We would do it over the course of 6 weeks. It would be live in person here at Watershed. So this fall, we returned to Preface. We shortened it to 3 weeks, and we're doing it in a Zoom environment. And man, people are signing up. And so we have quite a few folks. I think there's like 15 or so folks that have signed up for this next Preface. We'd love to see that number bump into the mid to high 20s. But all that to say, if you're brand new, if you're sort of trying to ask the question, what is this community? And how do I begin to see my spiritual religious past dovetail with who Watershed is becoming? Because we feel like we're still becoming in so many ways. We would love for you to engage that environment. Again, you can sign up in the comments section. Scott Hofert and myself host that experience. It's 3 weeks long, and the first one starts the second Tuesday of February. And then finally, I just want to continue to thank so many of you who during a season when it's just topsy-turvy in our world, whether that's in some of our careers or jobs or health concerns, the political unrest, the social unrest, the economic unrest, so many of you have continued to allocate resources in really, really generous and powerful ways. And so we want to thank you for that. We continue to, I'll say, gently struggle in that area because everyone's struggling right now, right? But thank you for those of you who have continued to stay the course. And for those of you who are interested, again, in the comments section, there's really secure ways that you can sign up either through a one-time gift or a recurring gift. And I know we mention this frequently, but not a lot of times, but sometimes organizations that our community work for, we found out can match your generosity towards Watershed. And so if you're interested in doing that, then we want to talk with you about that as well. Really excited about this morning. I know it's been a really, like I said, a very interesting, and that's probably giving it a generous title, an interesting 11 or 12 months. But we are so proud of our community, and we are so appreciative of you, Watershed, and the way that you continue to lean towards one another and the impact that we're having in this world. Thanks.
Good morning, Watershed. Hope everybody's warm and cozy wherever you are. My name is Ashley, and I came to Watershed for the first time about 4 years ago, around the same time of year. Sought this church out as a place where my husband and I could potentially try to piece back together a pretty broken marriage. On the surface, coming in the door, we probably looked okay as a couple. You know, we shared the same sense of humor. We had a lot of the same interests, a lot of the same worldviews, had a lot of good times together. But in reality, our relationship was a pretty constant struggle with unresolved traumas, resentments, and just a lot of pain that we caused each other over the years. We finally decided to separate about a little over a year ago, and 2 weeks ago, we filed the final paperwork for our divorce. So this next song that we're about to listen to, when I was listening to it, getting prepared for this service, I had a pretty visceral reaction to it. Initially hearing the words of the chorus, "This is no ordinary love." Had I heard those words 4 years ago, I might have thought to myself or been tempted to think that, it was a reminder that the relationship was special. We were high school sweethearts. We were the couple that stayed together, even though we had a really toxic environment that we were living in. We could stay up all night and slam doors and scream at each other and cry and curse and wake up the next morning and just keep going. So the roller coaster always came back up, no matter how many times it went down. So when I hear "No Ordinary Love," I cringed because that was my thought process, was that, even though it was like that, you stayed and you held it out until the good times came back. So when I finally went to see a therapist, I told her that I couldn't stay on the roller coaster anymore. And I was shocked when she looked at me and was like, "Yes, you could. You could stay on this roller coaster the rest of your life. People do it all the time." So she stressed to me the fact that I had to step up to the plate of my own life and do the work. It took a lot of conversations with trusted family members and friends and therapists, but I finally came to the decision of what was best for me and my health and my happiness. There's still pain, but just like in life, you know, there's always going to be pain and loss. In the death of something, you know, pain lasts and grief lasts for as long as it does. You can't really put a timeline on it. But just like in life, sometimes death is the end of suffering. And for me, the end of my marriage is the end of a lot of suffering. So I'm not here to, you know, tell anyone how to manage your relationships. I believe there's no substitute for really doing the inner work yourself, talking to people you trust, therapy if you need it. But I think the takeaway for this song for me now, after I kind of sat with my feelings and listened to the words again, is that the love that God breathed into you is not ordinary. It's precious, it's sacred, it's God-given. So as we sing this song, I just want you to consider whether the love that you've been allowing to flow in your life is fostering the kind of life that God wants you to live. And if not, maybe that means you need to have some conversations with people or with yourself, address issues that may be preventing you from having those kind of deep, meaningful, love-filled relationships that you're meant to have. Or maybe it's that you need to reconsider an environment where you're not able to honor God with the love that you're trying to give or present. Or maybe it's a toxic environment that you have with yourself. Maybe you just need to take some time and think about the way you're speaking to yourself and your love relationship with yourself. But whatever it is, I just pray that you have the courage to be intentional about love, and I pray that you are able to find those meaningful relationships and foster them and grow them so that you can experience love as God intended. I gave you all the
15 or 20 minutes late. So I expect that to continue whenever we're able to do so again. I've been a part of a Her Block, which has been awesome. I've met some of my dearest friends, and I joined a book club this past year, which has been great to meet new people and to engage in really interesting conversations about theology and beliefs. And so I really just thoroughly enjoyed that. One of my most memorable takeaways from walking through Preface was the opportunity to ask questions and share doubts. Finding a space that felt encouraging of those questions, that not only embraced them but welcomed them and saw them as curiosities, was really just such a beautiful moment for me. And it was a breath of fresh air to be able to say, I'm not sure I believe in all of the things that I thought that I had to. And so Watershed continues to be a space like that for me. Each week, Watershed asks the question, what is saving you right now? And Barbara Brown Taylor, kind of writes to remind us of the beauty of asking that question, which she's one of my favorite authors. And so as I reflect on what is saving me right now, in the simplest of ways, it's believing that I know myself. I think for whatever reason, I tend to think that I need to fit in with the certain timeline of our culture, certain molds, or put pressure on myself, or listen to things that make me doubt that I actually know who I am and what I want or need. And so embodying that I know myself, that listening to my body that is wise, and what it's telling me has just been truly life-giving. And so in that is also embracing doubts as curiosity and trusting those to lead me to new discoveries, to new liberating truths, to the divine all around us in new ways. And so what is saving me right now is believing that I know myself. If you are a doubter like me, or have questions and are curious all the time, I hope that in these words you hear an invitation to dig deeper into those questions, to see it as curiosity, and embrace it. So now is a time for you to reflect and to ask yourself the question, what is saving you right now? Where are you witnessing the divine? Rohr writes about it in his book, The Universal Christ, that this divine circuit of love is to simultaneously experience both losing and gaining control. So how are you experiencing the mystery of the divine?
morning, Watershed. It's Sean, and it is so nice to be with you virtually in this space. I am not going to talk about SEX. Sorry. That's just not in my DNA. As a charismatic Catholic girl, we don't talk about that in public, for sure, not even in private. So maybe, if that's what you were here for, step back and watch last week. This week, I'm just going to be talking about relationships, not the SEX part. So, and I probably should just stick to my script here. But this series we have done since the get of Watershed, and it has always felt both really encompassing to me and also very niche at the same time. Love is love is love in so many ways, and I think the foundational tenets of relationship making and keeping are constant regardless the players. And yet it's also so very niche. Divorced, dating, separated, together, parenting, gay, straight, polyamorous. There are so many variations of this thing called love, just as there are so many types of love to name. And now we have love in the time of Corona. This pandemic has shaped so much of our lives, and personal relationships have surely been impacted. Lockdowns and social distancing have tightened some of our circles, and we're spending more time together with some people, maybe too much time, and have experienced breaks from others. We've dived deeper into some relationships and pulled away from others. And the time we've spent truly alone has changed too. Some of us losing any time to ourselves, and others suffering complete isolation and logging unprecedented hours alone. In short, this pandemic has stressed our relationships with friends, with our partners, with ourselves. Statistics are just starting to show how this impact has fractured relationships. In China, which is now starting to reemerge from lockdown and return to a semblance of life rhythms pre-COVID, the divorce rate has spiked tremendously. Reports of domestic abuse in some Chinese provinces have tripled, and European cities have shown similar trends, and I am sure the US is right behind. It would seem that this pandemic has created deep fissures in relationships, not that that should come as a surprise. There's also an uptick in anxiety and mental wellness concerns in people of all ages. People I love who are very, very near and dear to me have experienced depression and anxiety for the first time. They've described sensations that I recognize as panic attacks, having experienced them myself for years. This is new territory to navigate for so many of us. A new self that's emerging, and it can be, sometimes is, very deeply unsettling. My own patterns of anxiety have shifted, and it took me a while, I'll be honest, to recognize some of my symptoms because they show up very differently in this pandemic sort of stress life than they have been before. That makes sense, though, if I think about it. So much of my external world has changed that it shouldn't come as a surprise that my internal reactions and processing would change too. And yet, I didn't perceive that new self right off the bat. This pandemic is raising mirrors. Collectively, I think we saw evidence of that last week on the siege on Capitol Hill, but also individually. This pandemic is not so gently telling us to see ourselves, and many of us are surprised at the images that are being revealed. We know that there have been emotional costs to this pandemic. Relationship woes and matters of mental health are just two examples. According to the nonprofit public policy organization, the Brookings Institute, studies suggest that these emotional costs have been much higher for the poor and the vulnerable than for the rich. I mean, duh, but sure. This only further highlights the deep inequities in this country. And then, of course, we saw white supremacy and privilege on gross display last week. For our biopic brothers and sisters, this has been traumatic and triggering, to say the least. My prayer is that reckoning is coming. But in the meantime, those of us who are not white have been struggling mightily. If you see us respond in a way that is out of character for us, perhaps consider the emotional toll this pandemic has taken. For Black and brown folk, the body count of COVID is higher, and stop, it is. Layer onto that the undeniable message that to have black or brown skin is a threat to your own safety, and well, I hope you can see why we feel such despair and why we might be showing up in relationship differently these days. I would be lying if I said my husband and I haven't had some difficult conversations lately. Conversations that don't get wrapped up in pretty little bows. Conversations that make me realize that to be in a committed relationship is to forever be meeting the other person. I used to think I knew everything about Bo. Likely, he probably thought the same of me. For the sake of understanding, I want to share a little bit of my positionality, just for transparency. I am a cisgender, straight female. I am a mother. I am Latina. I'm the daughter of parents who celebrated 42 years of marriage this past September. I grew up Catholic. I've considered myself religious all my life. But I've also embarked on a journey of decolonizing my understanding of church in the past decade or so. And I'm an introvert, and I think that part I don't normally lead with, but in this pandemic living, I think it's important. I gather my energy, I recharge my battery alone, and I haven't had much alone time. And I share all this to illustrate the point that we bring our many selves to relationships. We are multifaceted, and we show different sides in different settings to different people based on the roles we play, the politics of place, and a host of other things. But in general, those identity markers that I gave you, that's how I usually show up in space. It's how I usually show up in relationship. For more context, Bo and I have been united in civil marriage for 13 years, and we dated for 8 before that. I met him when I was 21. I'm a little bit older than that now. We've been in relationship together for 21 years. Now you can do the math, unless you're Matt. 8 of those have been shared in partnership of parenthood. I feel like I should play the lottery. We didn't win, Bo told me, he texted me. Should have played the lottery with those numbers. As Scott mentioned a couple weeks ago when he kicked this off, we are not the same people who met waiting tables those many, many years ago. And we were certainly not the same people who walked a sandy aisle at the beach in commitment with one another. In this pandemic season, when I thought I knew everything there was to know about my husband, I am learning new things about him and new things about myself. I've also learned new things about what it means to show up in relationship and about holding expectations. This is what I've come to understand in this season. We need to be gentle with ourselves and with others. We need to lower expectations and understand that our typical behaviors as a result of stress might in fact look different. It means we need to find new ways to love. Let me provide a picture of this. Bo has continued working this entire pandemic. He never went into a lockdown. He's in the hospitality industry for a restaurant group. And while the nature of his daily work has changed dramatically, he's now learning how to read ordinances, and he's paying attention to what he is allowed and not allowed to do. He's trying to ensure the safety of his employees and patrons, but still largely he leaves the house every day and gets to interact with people like in the flesh. I mean, he's wearing a mask, but he gets to leave the house and he gets to have conversations with real people. My job, my day job, is a professor, and it changed overnight. Since March, I have been teaching online completely. I've had to adapt to my pedagogy and seek new ways to engage in relationship with my students and my colleagues. Our 8-year-old boys are learning from home too, and with the exception, I think, of 4 times when they actually went into a building this past fall. Normally, by now, I would have attended 3 or 4 conferences out of state, giving me some time away from my precious boys. Some precious time away from my precious boys. I need to say that. My life changed overnight, and I grieve that old life. I miss the classroom. I miss the quad with the students sauntering by. I miss lunches with colleagues. I miss the casual touch of a high five, the embrace of a hug. Most days, my interaction with adults occurs through the venue of technology, which I have to say is a pale comparison to the real thing. And as many working moms have had to do in this pandemic, I have carried the brunt of managing the boys' education while working from home. And in fact, I consider myself extremely privileged that I am in fact still working, especially in the face of the fact that 4 times as many women have left the labor force during this pandemic than men. 4 times as many women have left the labor force during this pandemic than men, with at least a quarter of that massive number reporting their leave was due to childcare. For me, home has become the epicenter of all life. It is workplace and domestic sphere simultaneously. It is school and sanctuary, and it has been really hard to shift gears so often in a 24-hour time span in my 2,000 square foot house. I think it was sometime after what I'm calling the cottage chic stage of the pandemic. This is when people were binging on Tiger King, and we were making that, what's that coffee drink? I'm looking at the 4 people out here, like, come help me out. You know the coffee thing that was like really cool, the videos, everybody was making them at home? I'm calling that the cottage chic stage, because we all felt like we were getting a break from our lives. We just didn't know, right? And I started to see some really troubling messaging on my social media feeds about how COVID-19 was bringing to light who the true friends were. And I cringed at this expectation that steadfast friends were the ones showing up with extra text messages, that were organizing the Zoom chats at night. And here's why. On any given day, I log in over 4 hours of meetings on Zoom. And then I crush that number again with screen time grading, creating lectures, emailing, and replicating essentially all communication that I would have said in person to someone. I've got to convert that to some written form of text. This doesn't count the hours spent helping my kids, which is only lessened slightly now that they've acclimated to this new digital world. My work is so disrupted. Wi-Fi signals go haywire. Teachers' Zoom rooms don't seem to work. You guys, bloody, blessed Canvas is down again. I don't think that's a coincidence. If you're seeing it on the screen, I'm just saying the Canvas logo and the COVID-19, that looks a lot alike. Somebody research that, I'm just saying. Anyway, the Canvas goes down at least once a week. The boys need snacks they can't reach. And when I say snacks, I mean like 19 within 3 hours. That's my day. My day is so fragmented, I feel as though I started a million projects and finished none. In pre-COVID times, that would have been a stressful day. And I would have maybe poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, or if it was really bad, maybe had a glass of wine at like 4:30, don't tell nobody. But this staccato rhythm has become the norm. And by day's end, I am depleted. I have no emotional bandwidth left, not even for my husband, let alone my friends. A Zoom call to catch up at the end of the day when I am already zoomed out, I'm gonna be honest, that sounds like torture. It sounds like the opposite of self-care. And now all of a sudden, because I don't have the bandwidth for that, I am not a loyal and steadfast friend. My dear neighbor and friend is a homemaker. She's like Martha Stewart level, y'all, I'm not joking. And I'm gonna be honest, and this is a little ugly, but I was naive in the beginning of this pandemic, and I thought, there's no way she can have it harder than us working moms. But this is how her days are spent. Her days are spent trying to keep her 1-year-old toddler away from the back bedroom where her accountant husband spends an entire day logging tireless hours working. She also tries to keep that 1-year-old toddler away from the front room where her older daughter is working in their makeshift classroom. She's making lunches. She's handling temper tantrums. She feels so close and yet so far away from her husband, who only surfaces each evening after a hard day at work. Her son does not understand any of this. Why is half of his family unavailable to him when he can clearly see them? And for her, this was supposed to be the nesting stage. This is likely her last child. She was so looking forward for it to be just the two of them. And now the landscape is hard. It's tiptoeing. She feels like she's robbing him of his childhood, and she's exhausted. At the end of our day, when maybe the sky has 15 minutes of light left, we both sit on our front stoops. And there's really not much in the way to say, like, how was your day? There's not. We sit in this silence of seemingly meaningless small talk. But it's become an anchor for us. We have not had face-to-face conversations with adults all day long. So that small talk, however insignificant it may be, that is all we have the capacity for right now. That is what it looks like right now for me to show up. Just yesterday, I stopped dead in my mindless Instagram scroll at this quote by artist Juana. Just because you carry it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. Which is to say, this is hard for all of us. Being a good friend, being a good partner, being attuned to our own needs is hard right now. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with others. No one is having their best year except maybe our dogs. I feel like our dogs are living their best life. We got Rosie last Christmas, right before everything, the end of the world happened. I worry for her when we return to normal life. She has no idea. Bo and I have had to create new routines. I used to be the early bird, but we've swapped roles in that regard. Now Bo wakes up early to run. I think he does this because of the massive stress he's under. I think it's his chief mechanism for coping. And during this pandemic, and I need to add here too, it's not just the pandemic for me, it's the rise in white nationalism and the horrible attacks on people of color. During this time, I find myself struggling in the mornings, which is really unlike me. I like to greet the day. I like to squeeze efficiency out of my daylight hours. But there has been a reticence on my part to start my day. To circle back, I noticed that my patterns of depression have changed, that my anxiety is being embodied in a different way. I feel it physically. I feel that my body is storing trauma. And I think what it is that I don't want to wake up in the mornings. And if I dig down at that, if I root deeper there, I think it's because I'm afraid of the headline that's going to meet me in the morning. Without discussing this, Bo and I have met each other's needs. He handles morning prep. He gets the boys started with school. On weekends, he takes the boys for errands so that my introverted need to restore my energy alone is met. In this season, it might be that your needs have shifted. It might be that you need to find different releases and coping mechanisms due to pandemic living. Explore what that looks like. What does self-care look like right now? What margins do you have? Who is it vital that you save energy for? If you want to be a good friend and a good partner, who is it vital that you save your energy for? And then, for everybody else, how can you articulate your limitations for others? How can you deepen your reserves? These are important questions to ask because even in spite of vaccines and a new year and a new administration, this pandemic is still here. we still have, I think, a very long road ahead of us. Beyond gentleness and patience, I think we ought not lose sight of hope. We ought not lose sight of God in these stressed times. My mind goes to Moses and his newly freed people wandering around the desert. In the beginning, I imagine folks were like riding this liberation high, like remembering, yeah, he like split the Red Sea. You were there? Yeah, I saw that, bro. That's what I imagine. I mean, I know they didn't talk like that, but in my head, it's what I see. But I think about years later into this pilgrimage, into this wandering in the desert, did the manna, I would imagine, probably started to taste a little stale. Maybe they were over it, the leftovers. In her book, Hope in the Holler, A Womanist Theology of Hope, author Elaine Brown Crawford talks about the hope enslaved African Americans possessed to persist against abuse and oppression. The holler, H-O-L-L-E-R, right, is that guttural cry, that invitation to God. It's not as much a cry of despair as it is an invocation. In her words, their holler was a primal cry to God to come see about them. The holler was an appeal to God to comfort them and to provide solace in the darkness of spiritual and physical exiles. The hope deposited in the narratives of these slave women was a hope based on their trust in a faithful God who would see them through. It was a radical, incarnational hope given by God. Their hope was a bridge between liberation and oppression. How many of us started 2021 with that glittering promise of hope for better days, only to have it dashed less than a week in? I can be honest, I'm not proud, but I can be honest and tell you the incarnated hope represented in the birth of Jesus, which we celebrated not but a couple of weeks ago, has already started to lose its bloom for me. Or rather, I have forgotten that hope is really a promise for the future. Again, I turn to the wise Elaine Brown Crawford in an Advent study she wrote. She's referencing the book of Isaiah in Scripture, and the community there is also experiencing oppression and captivity. They're in dire economic straits, not unlike how we are today. The prophet Isaiah asks his community to shift their focus away from the present situation and instead center their focus on the restoration that is to come. Crawford writes, God offers them a word of hope not based on their current situation, but based on their future, directed with promise and abundant life. Well, what does this have to do with relationships in the time of Rona? Well, what if hope is the bridge across the troubled waters of the relationships we're in? What if we choose to zoom out our lens and focus on the future and not on what is lacking today? For me, hope is that eternal spring that I am dipping my empty cup into each morning, and also coffee. Hope is what sustains my reserves. It's what is filling my coffers. Watershed, we cannot give up on hope. We must remember our ancestors survived pandemics. Our ancestors survived far worse. Watershed, I promise you we will meet again. Can we hang on? I think we can. So this morning, brief as it was, I just want to spend a few minutes and close us out in prayer. May the divine, who knows the future before it's written, see us through this valley. May the divine, who bears witness to our pain, comfort our weary souls. May the divine, who hears our hollers, answer us with wild, unbridled hope. May the divine, who sees how far apart we've grown, heal the brokenness. May we meet again. And in the meeting, may we learn to love radically and with purpose. Amen. Have a great week, Watershed. Love you.